Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, the CIVITAS Webinar, Promoting Safety in Cycling, Discovering the New Policy and Make It Happen in Your City. We are now starting with the webinar. Before we go into the core part of the webinar, I would like to have just 5 minutes for a short introduction and some practicalities. So I will now show you my very short presentation. Well, I would like to start with the slide concerning CIVITAS. I think that most of you knows what is CIVITAS. So CIVITAS is an European Commission initiative. It was launched in 2002 to create a cleaner, better and sustainable transport in cities by developing, testing, evaluating integrated set of measures and policy, and with a strong emphasis on the dissemination and on the replication of the CIVITAS concept and measure, and with, I think, also let's say an important emphasis on the learning and exchange of learning between CIVITAS cities. In 12 years, more than 700 measures have been applied to more than 60 cities. So we can really see CIVITAS as a hub for knowledge for sustainable mobility. Concerning this webinar is organized by the CIVITAS thematic groups. The thematic groups are an open group of practitioners working in specific area of sustainable mobility. We have 10 thematic groups that are reflecting a bit all the specific topic that CIVITAS is focusing on, and each group is supported by a moderator, and each group has a specific section on the CIVITAS website. The thematic group are organizing thematic activity like workshop, study visit, peer review, and are opportunity for the members and for the other interesting user to get involved in collaborative activities, to meet your peers, participating in webinars, study tool, and annual meetings. From the side of the members, you can also suggest topic or ask for a peer review in your city, or for hosting an event, or take part in the face-to-face workshop. The thematic group that is organizing the webinar today is the Safety and Security thematic group, and the main focus is improving the safety and security of modes, but also at the infrastructure level, as well as promoting education and on safety on the roads and technological innovation. The group has today more than 50 members, and we really welcome you to join the group at civitas.eu thematic group Safety and Security. So before starting, I will quickly represent the agenda. So today we will have Ellen Townsend from the European Transport Safety Council. She will present the very recently launched presentation about safety cycling. Unfortunately, we will not have Kerry from the European Cyclist Federation because he's sick and he could not make it today. And then following the agenda, we will have Monica Vini from the city of Gdansk telling us what the city of Gdansk have been done in the cycling safety. Before starting, some rules, some practicalities of the webinar. So everybody, all the participants are muted unless you have the floor. If you have a question or remark, or you would like to comment, please raise your hand, and when possible, so normally after the presentation, we will give you the floor. If you have some question, more urgent question, use the chat and we will try to reply for you if it's a technical problem, or if we would like just to keep your question for after the presentation. Presentation and video recording will be made available after the webinar and the event page of the webinar in the civitas.eu website, and the short survey will be distributed after, and we will be really happy to hear your opinion. That's all from my side. We will now go in the core part of the webinar with Ellen Townsend. Ellen, yours is the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ellen Townsend. I'm from the European Transport Safety Council. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon to present to you our priorities on promoting cycling safety across the EU. So just checking that my presentation is visible.
No.
Okay, one moment, please be patient. In July, but before that we also had a seminar to gauge people's input and ideas. This presentation this afternoon will be presenting the report, but I also want to put it in a broader context. We're also working together with the European Cyclist Federation. It's really a pity that Kerry, the colleague, is not able to join today. He's sick. But I have included some slides in my presentation to show how our report will feed into a bigger process which ECF has just launched, the European Cyclist Federation, which is to come up with a blueprint, so ideas on how the EU could prepare a cycling strategy for the whole of Europe. So, but today my main focus will be looking on the safety part. And maybe just also to say that the idea for preparing this report came from ETSC, but also from one of our members who helped to finance it. So it's the Flemish Foundation for Traffic Knowledge. Maybe just a few words on ETSC. We're a non-governmental organization. We've been founded in Brussels over 20 years ago. We have 50 members from across the European Union. Most of these are NGOs, but we also have universities, research institutes trying to work towards the same aim across Europe, which is to reduce deaths and serious injuries on our roads. Okay, so now, hang on. Next slide. No, sorry. Yeah, no, it's fine. Right, so why cycle? Why focus on cycling? So although an increase in cycling might, at least at first, lead to an increase in the number of cyclists killed or seriously injured, the advantages of cycling that you would have through a healthy life, through regular exercise, benefit the environment, and also will lead to a higher quality of life. And these benefits totally outweigh their disadvantages in terms of disability-adjusted life years. So this is related to a report which really looked at the advantages and the disadvantages. So the main message that I'm trying to pass here is that there are lots of different reasons as to why we should support cycling. So ETSC, along with a whole number of other very important actors, are calling for an EU strategy for cycling. We had last autumn the Luxembourg presidency of the EU, so there was a declaration on cycling from member states calling on the EU to come forward with the European Parliament supporting the call for having an EU strategy. And yesterday there was the vote on the discussion of the new report from the Committee of the Regions, which I guess would be also very relevant for you as cities. So that was also passed with an overwhelming majority, also including the request to come forward with an EU strategy on cycling. There's also a parallel process going on from the PEP, the Health and Environment Pan-European Programme. So why we would like to have an EU strategy, well, there are a number of different reasons, which I'll come back to again during the presentation, but it would provide structure to motivate more action on cycling at a national level. And it could also encourage member states to nominate ambassadors and set up centres of excellence for knowledge sharing, as exist in already some member states. Right now, I just want to have these two slides which will present what is happening in terms of the preparation of coming forward with the blueprint. So the draft EU cycling strategy. So these are the slides from the European Cyclist Federation. I guess it's really just to show that there is a process in place. We would very much like you to participate. There'll be some ideas at the end of my presentation on how to do it. But the key date was in September. We had a kickoff event of the EU cycling strategy campaign. And there was also a workshop on this at the CIVITAS conference, so maybe some of you who were there might have had the possibility to hear more about it directly from the European Cyclist Federation. The final timeline that we're aiming towards, you'll see here. So we're going to prepare a document made up of 10 or so different chapters dedicated to different topics. And hand it over to the Transport Commissioner Violeta Bulc next summer at the Velocity conference in the Netherlands. So at the moment we are in the first drafting phase, and there will be possibilities for stakeholders such as yourselves to comment. So more about that towards the end of my presentation. Now, in terms of where we are in terms of road safety, I want to start with the challenge that is facing us. So last year in 2015, we had 26,300 deaths in the European Union, and unfortunately the trend is a negative one at the moment. So in 2015 we had a 1% increase from 2014. 2014 was a flatlining, so there was a leveling of road deaths, and whereas the years before we had a very good overall reduction of road deaths across the European Union. So there the key message is that we are in a road safety crisis across the EU. We have this target to reduce deaths by 50% by 2020, and at the moment we're behind. I also don't want to just talk about deaths here, I also want to talk about seriously injured. So as I said, we had 26,300 deaths in 2015, and that's alongside 135,000 seriously injured. So these are the challenges that we face. In terms of cyclists, so they, you have the figure there, they make up 8% of all road deaths in the EU. And unfortunately, the reduction in deaths involving cyclists, so the pace that they are reducing is slower than other types of road users. So there's really the need to focus on this as a priority measure. So in terms of who these cyclists are colliding with, over half of the collisions are with cars, and collisions with goods vehicles, so the heavy trucks account for 7% of all cyclist deaths. That's data from 2013. And one of the priority areas looking at collisions between cyclists and trucks is the near side turning, and that ranges between 5 and 18% of deaths involving cyclists with HGVs. So we really need to focus on that as a priority in terms of reducing the numbers of cyclist deaths across Europe. I'll be coming back to the topic of truck safety later on in the presentation. So what can cities do? So this is my first slide in terms of recommendations and a call to you for action. It's a very basic one, which is to do with data. Because without data, we don't know what is the impact of the measures that we're suggesting. So it's my request to you to keep records on the numbers of deaths and seriously injured involved in incidents, but also, and this is absolutely crucial in terms of trying to compare also with other modes, we need to have cycling exposure data. So this means looking at distance or time traveled in order to understand the cycling risk and assess the interventions that have been brought about. Amongst the road safety expertise, cycling and pedestrians, there's quite a difficulty in relation to the data in terms of high levels of underreporting. So it's really important to collect this data. So that's my first of a few more slides to come on what it is that you might be able to do in terms of taking this forward. So my next slide is from Copenhagen, a cycling mecca. But it's really trying to show that if we're trying to reach improved road safety across the EU, we have to have a three-pronged approach. So that means we need to work on how to improve the behavior of road users. We also need to work on improving infrastructure. And lastly, we need to improve vehicle design. So this is a holistic approach to road safety, which is absolutely vital in terms of reaching the objectives. So the rest of my presentation, I'll be focusing on those three different areas before coming to the conclusion. So the first area is an area where I do think that cities can make a big impact. So this is looking at infrastructure safety. So in the eyes of UTSC and the experts who drafted the report, we advocate a safe system approach, which means that the transport system should accommodate cyclists and account for their characteristics. This is a picture from the Netherlands, from Hoete, and comes from a handbook on infrastructure safety and infrastructure measures. Can also play a key role in reducing deaths and the severity of injuries when collisions occur. One of our main recommendations from the report is that the currently existing infrastructure safety directive should also be extended and applied to the urban environment. So within the infrastructure safety directive, there are 4 different instruments, including, for example, road safety audits. So one could imagine undertaking a road safety audit of a road in a city, but also making sure that cyclists are taken into account when the audit is being undertaken. At the moment, the Infrastructure Safety Directive only applies to the trans-European networks, so that's the highways, the fastest and also safest sections of our roads in terms of the data on where accidents, collisions happen. Another point I want to make about infrastructure is that it can also play a really key role in reducing speed, which, reducing speed is one of the main road safety measures, one of the main priorities. So the aim should be to minimize potential conflict between motor vehicles and vulnerable road users by engineering out potentially unsafe features on roads, including those related to traffic management schemes and maintenance projects. Infrastructure can also spur more cycling and stimulate public demand for more and better solutions. Part of the current problem in many EU member states is that most infrastructure has not been built with cyclists in mind. So I'll come back to one of our recommendations in a moment around land use planning, but I just wanted to quote the Helsinki cycling coordinator called Rita Kazan, who says, "Cities get the cyclists they deserve. If you have good infrastructure, you will get good cyclists." And it's the same with drivers and pedestrians. So next slide is really trying to show also that there are different ways of encouraging cyclists, well, people to take to the bike, to start cycling. And at present, fear of traffic is an oft-cited reason for not walking or cycling. And recent research from the UK shows that, in fact, 40% feel that the bicycle is a suitable alternative to the car for short trips of less than 3 kilometers, while 54% thought that they should ride a bike more often. 80% want safer conditions for cyclists. And another survey from the UK, from London, which was looking at attitudes to cycling, showed that 59% of potential cyclists cite safety concerns as the key barrier to them cycling. Fear of safety risks is a major barrier to the uptake of cycling. That means that we need to improve safety and apply safety measures. And the fact that cyclist numbers are increasing can also help to overcome this fear. If you're alone cycling, then yeah, that's going to increase the feeling of insecurity as well. So addressing both perceived and objective safety improvements will require slightly different but coordinated approaches. So when we're trying to encourage the EU to come forward with their strategy, we're going to be absolutely stressing the importance of providing safe and attractive infrastructure to encourage more cycling. Information about cycling routing can also help in this regard, so having a signposting, providing shorter, so meaning more direct or quicker and safer routes for cyclists is also important in this point. So moving from the perception of safety to one of the other priorities when we're talking about infrastructure safety, it's looking at intersections in particular. So about 1/4 of all crashes ending in death occurred within intersections for European countries that have data on this. Though there is also variability amongst the countries, I have to say that to qualify the data, but intersection safety is really one of the most important infrastructure-related safety interventions, and what can be done. So visibility, predictability, and speed reduction should be incorporated as key design principles in cycling infrastructure policies. And this means that intersections, and especially those which have already been seen to have had collisions resulting in death or serious injury, need to be treated. But there's also a case made for looking beyond these high-risk sites. In some cases, intersections may need to be treated as they act as area barriers to cycling, even if safety records are sound. So cyclists might avoid intersections that they feel are unsafe. Another very important tool is land use planning in terms of improving cycling safety. So the Transport White Paper in 2011 included a real change of approach to dealing with transport issues. So the Transport White Paper moved from this traditional single-pronged approach of building more and more transport infrastructure to a more multifaceted approach that is seeking to manage travel demand and making better use and more efficient use of existing resources. So this is where travel demand management and mobility management measures are becoming more important in terms of contributing to tackling the environmental impacts of transport. But such measures to seek travel behavior change, such as trip reduction, trip length reduction, reduction in vehicle use, increased travel by alternative modes, such as the bicycle, could and should provide more physical capacity for travel. Travel demand management can include land use planning, such as constrained development, fiscal measures, such as congestion charging, and a range of other measures, including school and workplace travel planning, car sharing, teleworking, walking and cycling improvements. So if I say one thing, how we design our cities also impacts on safety, sustainability and health, and safe design can proactively encourage walking and cycling as well as the take-up of public transport. So my next slide is linked to well, not so recently now, but 2-3 years ago, the European Commission adopted an urban mobility package, which included guidelines for cities to set up sustainable urban mobility plans, SUMPs, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of and even implementing them in your cities. So ETSC was very pleased at the time because road safety as a topic was highlighted as a horizontal issue, and specific guidance on integrating road safety is also being prepared. So within SUMPs, we would be advocating that there is a clear hierarchy of transport users, with pedestrians, cyclists and public transport users at the top of the hierarchy. And that as a general principle, these users should have their safety, convenience and comfort needs considered first. It's also important that the hierarchy is applied where a large share of travel is or could be made by walking, cycling and public transport. So it's also about moving towards a shift. In line with the safe system approach, the transport system should accommodate cyclists and account for their characteristics. This can also act as a measure to invite more cyclists out into the road. So as I was saying just now about the perception of cycling. An example of where this is applied is from Flanders, which is an approach called STOP, which stands for, well, the S stands for stappen, pedestrians, T stands for trappen, which is cyclists, O stands for openbaar vervoer, the public transport, and P for privé stands for individualized motorized traffic. So this idea of prioritizing. So again, what could you do at a city level? Well, if you're not already doing so, and I'm aware that there's a lot of good practice out there amongst the cities, apply the Infrastructure Safety Directive to all roads. So that's the 4 instruments in there, including the road safety audit. Promote the modal hierarchy based on safety, vulnerability and sustainability, like the Flemish example of STOP that I mentioned. Introduce 30 km/h zones. I'll be coming back to that. It's a very important measure. And prioritize intersection safety. So I'm doing okay for time. Yeah. The next part is looking at the actual road users. So in our report, we had one section which was looking at drivers and then another one looking at cyclists, because the experts who were contributing to the development of the report said, you know, we need action from both, well, all road users. So for us, one of the main priorities here is targeting speeding, so encouraging local authorities to adopt zones with a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour in residential areas and areas where you have high numbers of cyclists and pedestrians. Then if you have speed limits, these need to be enforced strictly. So that means having national enforcement plans with yearly targets for compliance, and there we would go beyond just the priority area of speeding, but also looking at distraction, drink driving, especially in urban areas where you have high numbers of cyclists. So essentially, if you have police doing increased checks against mobile phone use, then that will certainly also help general road safety, but also improve the safety of cyclists. Another priority is strengthening the enforcement against illegal parking when pedestrian and cyclist facilities are being disrespected by drivers who are parking on footpaths and cycling lanes. And then also map high-risk sites for cycling and using this to inform and direct enforcement actions, especially of speeding. So if you've got a high-risk site where there have already been some deaths or it's seen to be potentially dangerous, plus then you have a lot of drivers speeding, this could be used as information to help the police target their enforcement work there. In terms of what could be done amongst the cycling, so ETSC in our report, we also were promoting the idea that all citizens, not just cyclists, should receive basic training as regarding cycling skills, looking at the rules relating to using the cycling infrastructure, and also around the interaction between cyclists and motorized traffic at junctions. Second point is to improve the enforcement of illegal cycling behavior where they increase risk to themselves or other road users. So one point is increasing enforcement against unruly behavior of the drivers, but also looking at cyclists. And then again, with that, with the approach that it should all be the same, encouraging a zero tolerance approach to the use of drugs and alcohol to cover all road users, including cycling. We are also very worried about distraction and especially the dangers of checking your phone. I've seen cyclists texting whilst cycling along. Also, if you've got earphones on, then you've got one of your senses, which even if whatever you're listening to is not very loud, it could potentially be a distraction and means that you might miss something. And we do also have the recommendation of that member states should encourage helmet wearing among cycling, but that this should be done without discouraging cycling or leading to other negative side effects such as risk compensation. So the last area where we're looking for some strong EU action, but you yourselves can also support this by calling for the EU to take action. In fact, we had we were participating in a conference yesterday on truck safety, where we were also calling for the revision of the EU's type approval legislation. So vehicle standards is an area of exclusive competence for the EU, but you as cities can also call for changes to be made. So our priorities come about with fitting passenger cars and vans with advanced emergency braking systems, but also specific systems that can detect cyclists. So this is a new variation of existing technology. Then we also prioritize the fitment of all new vehicles with a technology called intelligent speed assistance. So this is a technology that brings, you see the diagram there, brings the speed limit information into the vehicle. And the overridable part is that if you are going over the speed limit, then you will receive some feedback, be it audio, but also could also be through the accelerator pedal. It doesn't slow the car down, but it would prevent you from overspeeding, which again would be a very, very helpful technology as speed, one of the three main killers, and would also benefit cycle safety. One of the other important requests that we have, again we discussed this a lot yesterday in the conference, was about introducing standards on direct and enhanced vision for HGVs. So you see the diagram there at the bottom. At the moment we have real problems around blind spots with cyclists. And if we were to engineer these out by changing the front of a truck, having larger windows, changing the position of the driver, we could also reduce deaths and serious injuries. And then one of the other measures is a very practical one, which is having indicator lights alongside of the trucks and the trailers. So that's a way of informing the cyclists that might be pulled up beside them about what this enormous vehicle is planning to do. So our recommendations in relation to vehicle safety is, yes, please push the EU for vehicle safety legislation to improve and integrate the needs of that you can also work well with, and we have a good example of this from London, is to develop procurement and other processes to ensure that where construction, infrastructure or any other project or development is supported, that the use of trucks meet with new direct vision requirements, revised underrun standards, and if those trucks are not in compliance with that, then they would not receive the contract. So the last section, well, nearly last section, is that we would also hope that if we were to have an EU cycling strategy, this would encourage national governments to include targets, measures and resources. And of course the idea of that is that you as cities would also benefit from being able to access the resources. And here we've got some examples of countries that already have these sort of institutions, agencies in place, so Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, UK as well. I'm not quite finished yet, but those are my contact details. So in terms of the European Cyclists Federation's action that we are also very much supporting on preparing a blueprint EU cycling strategy. This is the request from me on their behalf to get involved, so you can sign up to their mailing list. There is currently a survey on, so please input into it, asking your views on what should be involved. You could take a photo to support this the campaign. You could also see if your city would support it in terms of the logo. There's a guest blog, and this is the link to the survey just there. And here you have the web link. So really, just to conclude, I would say it would be absolutely wonderful if you read the report. So the report is on ETSC's website, and try to implement some of the recommendations, but also input into the larger discussion that is now going on between now and June next year, when we come forward with what we hope will be a really interesting, exciting and ambitious blueprint strategy for the EU on cycling. Thank you very much for your attention, and I think afterwards, maybe not quite now, we'll be able to take some questions from you, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Exactly, we will have time for questions for you later. Now I will give the floor to Monica for the presentation from the city of Gdansk. Monica, the floor is yours. Monica, we cannot, voila.
Okay. Hello,
Yes.
everybody. My name is Monica, and I work for the...
We cannot see your screen, Monica. Monica, we cannot see your screen.
Right. Okay, could you show your screen? Is it now okay?
Yes, yes, now we can see your screen.
Okay, just a second because I have to put it on a large scale. Yeah, it is just I cannot put it on a large screen because of. Okay, just one second. Yeah, it should be all right now.
It is fine now.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much for your patience. So I work for the City of Gdańsk within the Active Mobility Unit, and I have a pleasure to, together with my colleagues, to work on promoting and executing cycling policy in Gdańsk. And as Gdańsk is considered as a cycling capital of Poland, we have put the provocative question. So it is not what can we do to make cyclists feel safe on the roads of Gdańsk, but rather why do cyclists feel safe in Gdańsk? Well, I must say I love cycling, but I also love cooking. So I have put this statement that building cycling safety policy is like cooking. And why is it like this? Well, because there are some primary ingredients like the road infrastructure and the good and effective dialogue with citizens that you have to prepare according to your strategy. And then, as Helen suggested, you spice it with the promotional and education campaigns and many improvements. And what you get maybe will not be delicious, but it can be pretty good as we think it is in Gdańsk. So which are the ingredients of our success? I have divided them into 4 groups: the cycling policy and strategy, some infrastructure and investments, the cooperation with the citizens, and the soft measures. And then I will show you some statistics and the results that describe how it works. So let's start with the policy and strategy. We are very lucky because our authorities, the mayor of Gdańsk, Paweł Adamowicz, is very keen of developing a sustainable transport strategy, and it is reflected by different measures. Among others, Gdańsk is one of the 2 cities that has signed in 2009 the Charter of Brussels that states that we will increase the participation of cyclists in our model fleet to the level of 15% by 2020, and the other ambition was to decrease the number of seriously injured or killed cyclists by 50%. What next? We have passed the bicycle audit called BIPAC a year later. And on the basis of this audit, we have built the kind of strategy and the new standards for new roads and the roads that are rebuilt, that they have to include the cycling facilities and cycling-friendly facilities within. This political support is also visible in a repetitive organization of the Congress of Active Mobility, which is one of the biggest events in this part of Europe dedicated uniquely to active mobility promotion. And we have already had 7 editions of this event, and we regrouped over 1,600 participants up to now. As for the investment and infrastructure, well, we started a few years ago from the very beginning of building the bicycle network, so we cannot be compared with the cities like Copenhagen or Amsterdam, but it's not so bad here. In the year 2007-2013, within the old three-city agglomeration, we benefited from the large EU project of building over 35 kilometers of separated, dedicated for cyclists roads, and 26 traffic nodes with bicycle parking facilities. The project was for over 20 million euros, so it's a pretty big one. And well, the situation of today is still something to be improved, but it's a fairly good bicycle network of nearly 600 kilometers bicycle infrastructure. It includes 118 separated bicycle roads, 17 kilometers of shared pedestrian and bicycle paths, 29 kilometers of the walking path with that accepts bicycles, 47 kilometers of one-way streets with two-way streets for bicycles, 7 kilometers of bus lanes with bicycle accepted, and over 410 kilometers of calm street zone roads that covers for the moment 52% of all roads in Gdańsk, and the ambition is to increase it up till 75%. The other measure is building parking facilities for cyclists, and we try to make them safe, placed in attractive parts, so attractive, visible, and safe. So you have the different kind of parkings we offer for our cyclists. And only in this year, 2016, we have invested in 2,000 additional cycling tracks all over the city. The contraflow infrastructure, as I said, covers 47 kilometers and over 200 streets that you can see here on the map. There are also some other cycling-friendly facilities introduced in the city, like bike boxes, bike lanes, and special traffic lights. They are not redundant on the whole city, but well, we are doing what we can do. And this is another nice example of increasing the safety of cyclists. We have introduced this sign on 107 locations all over the city, just to remind the car drivers to keep the safe and comfortable distance from the cyclists. As for the soft measures that we also think must go along the infrastructural investments, within the CIVITAS Mimosa project, we have run the campaign, which can be translated as direction respect. The campaign aimed to increase the mutual respect and mutual understanding of different users of roads, so cyclists, pedestrians, and car drivers. They had a special website where they were putting their wish or their reflection, or how the other road users should behave. And on the basis of that, we have created like a little guide that were distributed a few years ago and last year, and this year, sorry, together with the police. To make cyclists feel confident, we are editing every year now the new cycling map as the network is growing, so we have to update it. And up till now we have distributed over 341,000 of cycling maps. They are all for free. We were thinking also of the feeling of the security of cyclists, not maybe for themselves, but for their bikes. So people are often not very confident to link their bike on a park on a street or in front of the house. So we have run the campaign where people were given the U-locks instead of not so much secured other bicycle locks. And last but not least, we run for 3 years now our flagship campaign, which is called Cycling May. And we started with, it is a campaign dedicated uniquely for the children of primary schools that, in our opinion, need to be introduced to this cycling behavior, motivated to use bicycle on their way to school. So we started in 2014 with 25 schools, and last year the project took all the schools in Gdańsk, and we, from nearly 2,000 of active cyclists, we have arrived to 22,000 of cyclists, and the campaign was copied by other cities, and we hope to get also other cities on board in the future. And the last ingredient of our successful recipe is the cooperation with citizens that we think is one of the priorities for any municipalities. So from the very beginning, we set up the series of workshops with the citizens of different districts. There were 19 sessions like this where the planned bicycle infrastructure was shown, proposed and discussed with the citizens. And on the basis of these workshops, we have received over 600 proposals of developing, improving the cycling infrastructures, and those proposals are noted by us and they are successfully implemented. The other way of engaging the citizens is a very good campaign. I think everybody knows it already, the European Cycling Challenge. And we have participated, participated twice in this campaign. And as you see, the Gdańsk citizens are very engaged. In the first year, we have had 26,000 citizens on board, and this year over 45,000. And this interest and engagement of Gdańsk citizens for cycling and for safety especially was also reflected in this year's participative budget. Sorry. That where the project that was dedicated to improve the safety for cyclists on the cycling crossing roads was voted as the most important project, and it will be implemented. Sorry. Okay. So, what are the results of all of this holistic approach? As considering the safety of cyclists, You can see the blue line shows the dynamic of increase of cyclist path. So from 2011 to 2015, we have seen the 50% of increase of dynamic of cycling commuters, cycling commuters, and during this time, we also had 3 death cases within the cyclists and just 1 collision in the contraflow. The other important fact is that despite the pain cycling made that I told you before, the serious injuries and death of children, they are still dropping, and in 2015 we had not even 1 injured or dead kid. I do not have the statistics for this year, but as organizer, I haven't heard about any injury that occurred during the Cycling May campaign. And the last slide is that people really enjoy cycling in Gdańsk, and it can be reflected by the fact that in the last 3 years we have won the European Cycling Challenge, and we've made really a big number of kilometers on bicycle. So we are not going to stop in our effort to improve the safety for cyclists. And in this year, we have launched the program for the year 2016-2030, just to increase the safety on the roads, of course, including cyclists. So I hope you liked our recipe of success. And if you have any questions, please do put it or just write to me on the address shown below. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Monica, for your very interesting presentation. I would like now to ask to the participant if there is any question. We took note of a question about the policy for helmet. So I will leave the floor to Ellen for the reply.
Yes. So thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I hear there was a problem at the beginning of the presentation. So this is a response to Thomas, who was asking how can you possibly promote helmets without side effects? Well, it's a very good question, a very warranted question. And we do also cover this in our report. I can tell you that amongst the different experts that we had contributing to the report, this of course was one of the areas where we had a lot of discussion. But essentially our recommendation is that designers of awareness-raising campaigns and activities for the use of helmets should aim to send a balanced message. So that means one that does not dissuade people from cycling by portraying it as a dangerous activity. And maybe also just to add that quite a number of our members are engaged in running these sort of awareness-raising campaigns. So that's another area to look at in terms of finding some best practice and how you do this in a balanced way, as I say, without portraying it as a dangerous activity. Maybe another point on helmets, I would really like to stress that this is not, this should not be seen as the #1 measure, as the measure to improve cycling safety. It's one of a whole range of different recommendations. And for cities, I just would want to summarize, I think the priority should be invest in safe infrastructure, reduce speed, so look at how infrastructure can reduce speed, but also improve vehicle safety, so call for the revision of the EU's vehicle safety standards. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. I know there is a comment, but I don't know if the person wants to have this comment loudly. Otherwise, there is some other question. If you want to make some question, please raise your hand. I don't see any hand. Yes, I see an hand. So Anna, we will give you the floor. Anna Jones, you have the floor. Your microphone is unmuted, so you can make your question, or if it's just a comment, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks. To ask Helen again, the European Commission, the EU Urban Mobility Package. I just came back from the meetings talking about cities in regional development and urban development, and the trends that there are between extending peri-urban areas and rural areas. How is the European Urban Mobility Package with these other agendas for urbanization, being that the trend seems to be extending peri-urban and rural? Hello?
Mobility package. Oh, sorry, hang on one moment. Are we on?
Yeah.
Could you just repeat the last part of your question? So it's to do with how the EU's urban mobility package is being extended to look at also the rural and peri-rural.
Yeah.
So I guess the areas where you have the two joining, the urban and the rural. Whew. I have no idea. It's a very interesting question, and of course we can't just, I mean, urban areas, cities are not islands. You know, they are connected to the areas around them, but I'm afraid on this point I can't really answer, although I can absolutely see the relevance in terms of road safety, what I was mentioning before, the point on land use planning and travel planning. If you're trying to get people into a city for work and out again safely, and you're trying to encourage them to cycle, for example. So yeah, sorry about that. I also, just as I have the floor, because there was a question about where to find the ETSC report. It's on our website, www.etsc.eu. So etsc.eu. Thanks very much.
And we have another hand up. It is Andy Mulholland. So Andy, the floor is yours, but he's not attentive. Andy, are you there? Andy, are you there? Would you like to make your comment?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please make your comment or your question.
Yes, Andy Mulholland from Glasgow here. Two things. Just one is to highlight that the problem of quantifying perception of safety is obviously a difficult one. And there's a project which some of you may be aware of called the Near Miss Project. If you simply Google Near Miss Project, it will come up, but www.nearmiss.bike, which is quite an interesting thing because it quantified the feelings of fear that people have as vehicles pass too close or turn against cyclists. So it's quite a useful illustrator for convincing people of that particular problem. But my question was whether part of the problem in the UK at the moment is the reduced resources available to cities and to local authorities to get the necessary expertise, to spend time collecting data. It's quite an expensive process. Are there any funding streams available, or is this something that you're looking at that local authorities could apply to, or even that people could apply to help train local authorities in that expertise?
Very good question. I know that some CIVITAS Support Action will launch some activity fund. So we are talking about like maximum 10,000 euros fund to cover more local projects. So this is the fund that I would see probably the easiest to get. Other funds are back to the European Commission fund, so you have like Horizon 2020 project, but there I think is pretty more complicated and as a wider scope than just that. But this, of course, is just what it is in my knowledge. I don't know if Ellen has some other suggestion.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, it's a very good question, and it's also something that we're concerned about. There are being cuts to funds, not just in the UK, but across the EU at the moment. Our report has, under the whole section on infrastructure, we're calling for dedicated funds for cycling infrastructure under the Connecting Europe facility. So that's obviously an enormous pot of EU money going for infrastructure, including the high-speed roads, although most of it is going for rail and rivers, etc. But the other one of our other demands, again, it's more to do with infrastructure, is that if EU money is being used to build and maintain roads, that they have to also comply with the requirements of the Infrastructure Safety Directive. One last point, one last more sort of political point is that of course we hope that we will have an EU strategy on cycling. If we have an EU cycling strategy, then this should hopefully also encourage action at member state level. So that means countries where there are not yet national cycling strategies would be motivated and encouraged to develop them. And of course, you know, what's the point of, I mean, to realize the strategy, there should be funds identified. I know that's a not very practical question to your extremely practical and relevant question, but just to say that hopefully in the long run, in the big picture, having an EU strategy on cycling would also mean that you in Glasgow would be able to access some funds to help you to realise the important point of work that you outlined there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Is there other remark, other comment? Well, I have to send the apologies from Monica. She has to leave, so she is not available for answering any question. If you have a specific question for her presentation, please send it to me or to her by email. Her email is in the presentation, and the presentation are already available in the webpage of the webinar in the CIVITAS website, and soon the recording will be also there. If there are not any other question, I think we will come to an end of the webinar. I would like still to thank Ellen and Monica for the presentation. Send the very quick and full recovery to Kerry, which is not here today, but well, we are sending you our thoughts. And thank you all the participants for your time, your attention, and for the question. Please don't forget to become member of the CIVITAS Thematic group, and if you have any question, we are available. There is a question.
No, somebody raised the hand.
There is a hand. Let's see what it is. I saw it. Marco,
Yeah,
Marco, do you want to make your point or question?
Yes, do you
Yes, the
hear
floor
me?
is yours.
Okay, I will try to be short. I just aim for concern of helmets.
Yes.
Okay, we already talked about that, but I just wanted to address issue that rarely is addressed in cycling campaigns, and that's the issue of technical state of bicycles. So basically, it is very rarely addressed the question of does bicycle have lights? Is it are brakes working and stuff like that? So maybe that would be better idea to address than bike helmets. Just wanted to make a point of it.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. I don't know if Ellen wants to say something.
Yeah, just shortly. Just very shortly. Thank you very much for this. It's also a point that we cover in our report actually, and you're absolutely right. The point about visibility and lights is also very crucial. Thanks for bringing this up. I think it's a very good point.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I would like.
Anna,
Yes, there is. There is another question from Anna. Anna, you raise your hand?
Yes.
You can speak.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, maybe it's more of a comment or a question for Helen or anyone else that want to add. I know that there are projects on mobility for types of mobility now coming up in cities, not just bicycle and walking, but also maybe scooters or other types. How is that being integrated into this strategy, or is it only for bicycles and walking?
Can I have the mic? So in fact our report is just on cycling. ETSC does also regularly publish reports looking at other modes. So we have, for example, got a report looking at the safety of power two-wheelers, so including scooters. But there are a lot of other new, very interesting modes of transport that are coming about. So one unicycles and segways, although segways I think have been around for a while now. No, I totally agree. We need to look beyond just cycling. But for us, this is really a priority measure in terms of trying to improve safety and reach that EU target. So that's why we wrote the report and why we're hoping that the EU, with the help of the European Cyclist Federation, will come also up with an EU strategy. But thanks for bringing this up.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Last call for hands raised. 3, 2, 1. So I will come to an end. So thank you very much for this session, and well, we hope to see you soon in some other CIVITAS event or other webinar. Have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.